Hello everyone and welcome back to episode 3 of Hardcore Minecraft, where we've been making some great progress. And I say have because this episode is a little more chaotic. We're not building any massive expansion on our house or any other really significant building. There is some building, but most of this episode is dedicated to exploring around the world and collecting some different resources which will be useful in the future, as well as doing some more slightly chaotic and slightly pointless things along the way, which I'm sure you will see when you watch this video. But don't worry, we'll be getting up to much more worthwhile things in the next episode. But for now, let's get into this one. I started off with resource collecting in my strip mine. I managed to get some more iron so that I could make a fresh set of tools. I found a cave and was able to collect things like gold and iron, but ultimately I decided that I didn't want to continue venturing down into the cave and instead wanted to go back up to the surface so that I could collect some more resources like these spruce trees that had recently grown. Then headed down into my chest room where I found an enderman, so I decided to trap it in a boat so that I could kill him, which was easier said than done, but I eventually managed to capture him and he dropped nothing. I spent a bit of time clearing this area in front of my house so that I could get to building. I used the spruce logs that I just collected and made this shape so that I could start on a stable. I had a couple of horses already, so I knew this was something I was definitely going to build eventually, and now they would no longer have to live in my cow pen. This stable is definitely on the simpler side. I added a lantern at the top to make it look a bit more interesting and some trapdoors. I then added a composter to my garden so that I could turn my seeds into bone meal before bringing my horses to their new stable. This was the first horse I got, and I think I got it in episode 1, so I was really happy for him finally to have a better place to live. From there, I was in need of a third horse, and I'd seen this white one across the river, so I went to go and collect him, which I eventually did, creating some little paths over the river, and I added him to the centre of the stable. From there, I really wanted to do some villager trading, so I went over to the village and took a librarian villager in a boat back over to my house. He had some really good trades like paper, which I knew I could easily get for emeralds. And that's how I got my first few emeralds, by trading with him. I then went back over to the village as I knew that some Fletcher villagers traded sticks for emeralds, which would be super useful. So I turned this guy into a Fletcher by removing the lectern and saw that he did have the stick to emerald trade, which was really useful. From then I shut him into this house and began making some sticks so that I could start trading with him. Next, I really wanted to get him back to my base, so I created another boat for him, and after a lot of struggling managed to get him in it. I ended up breaking the wall of the village house just so that I could get him out, and began making a little tunnel to allow him to get back to the water so that I could row him across and back to where I'd left the other villager in my base. Once I had them both safely kidnapped or rescued back into my base, I traded those sticks for the emeralds and ended up with a load of emeralds, which was really, really good. Then I decided that I wanted to start the main thing that I will be doing in this episode, which is adventuring around the world and seeing if I could pick up any interesting things that might be useful for building or collecting in the future. So I went back to the village near my base and went out the other side and continued that way. I swam across the water where I could see some acacia trees and decided to go over there to collect some logs and a sapling. I then went over the mountains which I had seen and then found a cherry blossom biome. I went on to collect some flowers before sleeping in a little hole I made by the side of the mountain, then got some pink petals and began cutting down a cherry tree so that I could get one of those saplings. Next to a ruined portal which I found. It had fairly decent loot, but I soon went back to collecting flowers. I found this little shore area which had a lot of coal, and I always tend to find myself running out of that, so I grabbed it quickly before heading back towards the cherry biome. I found these cute wolves, which I definitely want to go back and get at some point. They were in the acacia biome and they were so cute. Then I went back to the ocean and found some tropical fish, which I hadn't seen yet in this playthrough. I rowed my little cherry boat all the way back to the village which is next to my base, so that I could take all of my resources that I'd got back, and I decided to start by planting the cherry blossoms that I had found. I planted them around my base. I'm not sure if they're going to stay there or if I will just use them to collect the wood, but for now I decided this would be the best place to put them, and they look okay. From there I went on to expanding my farm as the sheep were definitely starting to look a bit cramped in their little fenced off area. From then, once I'd finished that one, I moved on to the cows and again decided to expand. I definitely don't have as many cows, but I think I'll definitely need more in the future, so I just thought I'd do this now. And when I looked at these sheep, it gave me the terrible idea of collecting all of the different 11 coloured dyes that I would need to make rainbow sheep. So I decided to use that as a motivation to set off on another adventure, this time looking for some cacti so that I could make green dye. I then came across another village, which I took some stuff from, including these brown banners, and I saw a shipwreck, which I definitely needed to go and explore. I found some emeralds in a bundle, which was kind of cool, but not much else. I then took my little cherry boat over to the shipwreck so that I could get those chests. Collected the first chest, which had a couple of interesting things in it, mostly just the treasure map, and then before going to collect the next one, I noticed that the sun was beginning to go down, and not wanting to leave myself stranded in the middle of the ocean, I went back over to the village and slept. Then I went back in the morning so that I could collect the second chest, which had considerably better stuff in it. Leaving the village, I rode over to this really impressive looking island, which had a massive desert on it. This was where I eventually found the cacti I was looking for so that I could get that green dye back home. I took enough to hopefully mean that I would be able to plant some more when I got back home. That was when I saw a camel, which I'd never seen in survival Minecraft thus far, as I don't usually play in deserts and don't usually try and collect every colour of dye. I then decided that I really wanted to try and ride him, but I didn't have a saddle. Therefore, I decided I had to explore more of this island and look for some cows. At first, I didn't find any cows, but I did find a second village with a mangrove forest next to it. So I took some propagules so that I could get that wood at home, and eventually found some cows so that I could craft that saddle. I went back over to where I'd found the camel and crafted it, and then tried to find the exact camel that I'd found when I first got on the island so that I could ride him. Unfortunately, there was no way of me being able to bring him home as I don't have a lead or anything, so I had to abandon the camel where I had found him on his little island, which was kind of sad, but hopefully I'll be able to go and get him again in the future if I come up with a good way of being able to get him back home. I rode past a very pretty coral reef on my way back and found a tiny little chunk of jungle forest. I chopped down a tree and got some cocoa beans, but didn't get the sapling as my inventory was full and I didn't realise. At this point I decided that I was a little bit lost and had to use coordinates in order to find my way back. I ended up in the forest that I first spawned in and found some pillagers, though they mostly left me alone, and then I continued on through the forest until I came out into the expanse where my giant house is. I was definitely glad to be back. From there I planted my cacti that I'd found and set about making all of the different coloured dyes, which involved smelting the cacti and collecting up all of the flowers from my chest so that I could begin making each colour. The red and the orange and things like that were fairly easy. I managed to get the cyan as well, and I added them all to this chest before eventually laying them out in my inventory. And after a tremendous amount of effort, I was finally able to go to my sheep and dye each one a different colour of the rainbow. I decided to keep to one sheep per colour so that I didn't get an overrun of one particular colour. Obviously, I didn't use all 16 colours of dye, as things like brown, white, grey I wasn't particularly interested in. Instead, I wanted to keep to just the rainbow colours. Most of the sheep got a dye. I think I left one white just in case I need something like that in the future, and I think they all looked kind of cute. This was a totally unnecessary and very time-consuming task, but I do like the way that they look in my field. It's kind of weird and not very in keeping with a natural vibe, but if you want to do something like this, it doesn't take super long. It also makes for an interesting view out of the bedroom window of my house. Thank you to everyone who made it to the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider leaving a like and subscribing, as it helps both this video and the channel. And also don't forget to come back for the next episode, where I've got some big plans to do more building and terraforming and generally making the area feel a bit more like a base, which includes some interior decorating. So if that's something you're interested in, make sure to come back and watch the next one, as well as just for some more hardcore Minecraft. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.